a real pleasure to be speaking with Kinyanjui Kombani, a renowned author, but also a double agent because he's a banker turned. Are you a banker who turned into a writer, or a writer who happens to be a banker, or what would you describe yourself as?
I think it's a bit of both. I think I'm call myself the banker who writes.
The banker who writes.
I'm still having a career in the bank, and I still write.
And you're able to find the time, you work for an international bank. I imagine your hours are quite long.
Yeah. But what I've done is to try and find out a good optimum hour for writing. So
yes.
I don't, first thing is that I don't write for hours on end. I just dedicate 1 hour per day for writing.
Okay.
So that's how I'm able to balance. Yeah.
And obviously I've been a big fan.
Thanks.
And I was thinking of how to describe your style of writing, and I remember being in Washington, and there was this very famous American artist called Roy Lichtenstein, and it's very dramatic, there's action, there's all kinds of things happening. And then I was also thinking back to, there's some fantastic black Negro writers of crime, and the names escaped me, but it's very exciting literature you write. Tell us a little bit about the style just came to you, or is it?
I think it's a mix of many things. One of them is that I find it comfortable writing about slum areas. So you'll find a lot of slum areas because I've lived in the slum.
You have?
I have.
So this is a personal experience that you're drawing on?
Yeah, so it's a mix of personal experience.
Yes.
Because I find that it's easier for me to write about things that I know about. So if I'm talking about, let's say, somebody who sells meat by the roadside.
Yes, this is your latest book.
So that's a person that I've actually seen, interacted with. So that's how it is.
That contrast, and it comes out particularly in this book, is actually Nairobi, isn't it? Wherever you live, even if you think you live in the most exquisite areas, Muthaiga, a mile or so away, you have this juxtaposition, and I think you capture that really in a spectacular way. Can we just kick off with the latest book,
Pawns and Players?
Pawns, if you can show everybody, So I read this, I think, in one sitting, because that's how I read you. And tell us a little bit about it.
One of my publishers asked me if I could do something humorous.
Yes.
And I said, okay, let me take up the challenge, because most of my writing is dark. So I told myself,
the previous two were much darker.
They were much darker. And I also trying to stop the feeling that I'm a dark writer. So I said, let me just try this humor. And I found humor in somebody who sells meat by the roadside.
You've got to describe what he's selling, because if you're not Kenyan, this is Mutura.
So Mutura is offal. So you put
it's the intestines,
and then you put meat inside.
Yes.
Or leftover meat, and then you first of all boil it.
Yes.
And then now you roast it.
Okay.
It's a delicacy. If you've not tried it, you should try it.
Yes.
It's a delicacy, especially in some of the either rural areas or even in the slum areas.
Yes.
It's a huge delicacy. So that's why I find that it's actually based on a true story of a Mutura guy.
So in case people don't know about it, he's selling it by the roadside. And it's based on a true story.
It's based on a true person who sells Mutura. Because I had one friend of mine who was selling Mutura, and I found it funny that when I went to his place one day,
which you said you were surprised in the book at the quality of life.
Yes, I was surprised because he lives in. I'm a banker, but if you went to my house and you went to his house, you'd think him is the banker, because he had a very nicely furnished house with, and I was surprised at that. So I really wanted to demystify the fact that we think that these people, because they are low life, that they are not living very good lifestyles outside. Secondly, also that we think that they are stupid people. They maybe failed their education, and that's why they are selling Mutura. And that's why you find that in this story I actually try to actually demystify that, make him the ultimate winner of all this game of pawns and players.
Which he was.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. So why don't you just describe the story a little bit to us?
So the story is that he gets to get into a friendship with a girl who is obviously from a very rich family, and they pretend they do one pretend game where he pretends to be the boyfriend so that she's not asked in a family meeting, and when the dad takes a liking to him because he says, he doesn't say he's successful, he says he's in commodities.
That's
So because it's a commodity, it is a commodity if you think
food,
about
the
it.
biggest.
Yeah. So the father takes a liking to him, and later on discover that this guy is actually a Motura guy, and I was thinking that he's the best, maybe a future son-in-law who is very, the person I would like to be my son-in-law. And then during that skirmish, she tells him, I discovered that this guy could actually be our road to fame, because we are looking for somebody exactly like him who we can pose as a winner of a lottery, and then once he wins, then we'll get other people to bet.
Yes.
And that's now the storyline.
So I found that very interesting, that you kind of, you've got this figure, then you're pulling in what are big contemporary issues right now. I mean, betting is like Uber, it's spread like wildfire.
Big, yeah.
And then you're drawing in stories which are, I don't know what's the term for them, urban myths maybe. So they use him, they think they're using him.
Yeah. So they use him, and ultimately he discovers that he's actually being used, and when the girl discovers, they decide to actually rob the parents of the money, and it's all downhill from then on.
It's fantastic, I must say, and I'm not going to tell any more to people.
Spoilers,
Yes, you've got to buy Kinyanjui's book. Really a slight departure, a little bit more gentle. I don't want to spoil the ending, but they end up in Zanzibar.
Ultimately, yeah.
Which, by the way, has the best food on that.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I wanted to, because when I was in Zanzibar, I was spending most of my evenings at Forodhani.
Yes.
Because that's where you get, and I was just trying to show this guy has been a seller of the same things, but now he's a consumer. He's just sitting down, getting served all this nice food in Forodhani. So I think that was a good ending. A couple of guys have said they would really like to see a sequel.
Yes. No, I think you've set that up.
Yeah.
So now take us back to the book immediately before this one.
This is the Den of Iniquities.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, this is a remarkable but slightly darker. Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So this was also inspired by some events. It was inspired by a couple of, I had a research in Dandora, and I've done quite a bit of research in Dandora, and I discovered that there's at least 3 out of 5 families have lost a young person. And they lost a young person because of extrajudicial killings.
Which is a big subject even today.
Even today it is.
Yes.
And in fact, I have yet another story another short story that's being released next year, which is actually about the same thing. Because when you hear the news in the evening, you'll see, 5 people have been killed by police.
Yes.
And when my research found out that there's actually, it's a continuous circle. It's a very vicious circle where the crime rate goes high. People complain that the police are not doing anything. The police have a list of people who they know are either known criminals or associates of those criminals. And what they'll do is just go and pick them and then shoot them. And then we have police. Now it has several consequences. One is that we have police who are very trigger happy. And some of them are not really good people, because they'll go and tell you, you have to move from Nairobi and you have to go to your country. And if we find you, are going to kill you. And that's what they do. So we have a policeman who is a jury, executioner, and everything in one. The other thing also is that we have a couple of young criminals who are very daring. I think in the past you used to be mugged, and so long as they take your wallet and your money, that's it. but now they're likely to mug you and kill you because they have no
Well,
respect
because
for life.
they
Because
don't
know,
have respect
yeah,
for
they
life.
know that I can be killed today, so why should I spare this man? Yeah, and it's a sad.
So you were exploring this side of things, the cheapness of life.
yeah.
And it's been a big issue actually throughout our history as a country, hasn't it? If
Yeah,
you
it
look
has,
back
yeah,
from independence
Yeah,
and
yeah, it has.
even now.
And in my next story, I go further and I discover, I find out that we have those young men who are told to go up country, and most of them go up country and their lives are saved.
Yes.
But what if you don't have an up country? Some of us were born here in Nairobi and brought up here in Nairobi. They have no up country to go home to. So what happens?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my next story.
So these are folks who haven't got it. They can't go anywhere.
There's no up country to go
Yes.
to. Yeah.
And tell us what happens in the end in the Den of Iniquity.
So Den of Iniquities, it's a story of fate because a man is going home to his family. He has a child who is very sick, and he's been told that if he doesn't get a certain drug to him over the weekend, the child is going to die. So he has the drug now and is going home, and then he finds some people fighting. He stands to watch, but then police come and arrest everyone who was there, and is arrested. And when he goes to the magistrate, he says that he admits that he's guilty and he's jailed for 3 months. So when he comes back, he has no life. There's nothing, and
And the child?
And the child survived. So he realized the child has survived, but because a neighbor came in and saved them, and over these 3 months, the neighbor has actually kind of married the wife. So he's lost everything. He's lost his job. He's lost his family, and he decides to go on a revenge mission. Yeah.
No, that was excellent as well. And then we go back one more to your previous book about
Molo. So this was
Molo.
my first book, yeah?
Yes. Oh, this was the first one.
This was the first novel.
What year was that?
It was in 2002 when I was still in campus.
Yes.
That was my first book.
Yeah.
It is inspired by true events. Most people know the post-election violence in 07 as the worst case in Kenyan history, but they don't know that the Molo clashes were much more deadly because a lot more people died in Molo.
In 2007?
In 1992.
1992 we had problems, 97?
Yes, we had problems.
207?
207 you had problems, yeah. So, but the 207 clashes were all over the country, but Molo 1992 was worse. We had more than 2,000 people who were killed.
Wow.
But because we didn't have the kind of media that we have now, so people didn't know basically what was happening.
Life has changed in that sense, right?
Exactly,
and
there's a lot of
speed around, whereas before,
yeah.
I remember being at talking to an advisor at the central bank, and he was saying, Ali Khan, we had terrible famines, but no one would ever talk about it. Whereas today, you will have photographs and everything.
Yeah. Now things have changed a lot. You can't hide anything from the public.
Let me ask you a question about being a writer. I mean, I'm sure there are lots of people who watch this and say, I've got a passion for writing. I would like to write. Is it a viable business? Can you make a living if you were to now say, actually, I want to be a full-time writer? Could you do that, given you've been so successful?
Yes, you could. You actually have a lot of people who write for a living. People like Bikozulu who actually just write for a living. The question is, would you have the same standard of life as you have?
Yes.
But you could actually write and live comfortably as a writer now, because we are seeing the blogging space blowing up. We are seeing companies wanting writers to do briefs for them. We are seeing a lot of awards, like this book won the BAT Award in last year, 2018.
Yes.
Which is, I think, it's Africa's richest award. You get 10,000 Canadian dollars. So
you're rich.
I was rich.
You spent it.
I spent it
On
already.
Mutura.
Must be a lot of Mutura. Maybe the whole cow.
No, because I was imagining how much was she eating, because she'd always pay 1,000 bob, and I thought to myself, that must be the whole thing.
Mutura is the whole thing, because the piece is 50 shillings.
Yes.
Or 20 shillings to 50 shillings. So if you eat Mutura worth 1,000, that's a whole lot of Mutura. Yeah.
So how many copies do you expect to sell, for example, of your books?
So with Pawns and Players, I expect a lot more than any other book, because it has had this multiply effect. We released it 2-3 weeks ago, and we sold out the first print run,
How much was that?
about 3,000 copies.
Oh, congratulations.
In about 3 days. So it's the fastest selling book of mine.
But I've noticed that you've upped your game big time.
Exactly.
On the marketing, on
social
encourage-
media.
Yes,
and,
yes.
I used a pre-order option.
I saw that.
And then we had a trailer. So we had a trailer for the book. I don't think there's any other person who's ever done a trailer for a book. So we had a trailer. My friend John Sibi Okumu voiced it.
Yes.
We used a strategy where I used WhatsApp.
Yes.
So I sent it to all my WhatsApp contacts. Send the trailer, and then I said, tell guys, send this all over your networks. If 20 people say they've got the book because of you,
Yes.
you get your book for free.
Wow.
So a lot of people are sharing, and it went all over. And before I knew it, people were asking for
So
orders.
you've completed your first print run.
Yes, and
Congratulations.
we are now on the
That's
second
a
print
big
run.
deal.
It's a big deal because in Kenya,
I can't think of anybody who's done that in that short space of time.
in Kenya, if you do 1,000 copies a year, it's a bestseller. So if you're doing,
Is that
able to-
it?
Yeah,
1,000?
it is. Unless it is a school academic textbook.
Yes, because I was also looking at your publisher's results.
Yeah.
And they said they moved 500,000 books.
If a book is a set book,
Yes.
you are assured of about 400,000 copies a year.
What?
Yeah. So,
So
if
is that the holy grail for?
yeah.
Yes.
And that also forms part of our problem, because you find a lot of writers write for
For
that
that,
market. They
yes.
are writing hoping that the KICD is going to pick the books up as a set book, which now makes it difficult for you as a reader who's just reading for enjoyment to enjoy the book. Because one thing I'm trying to do, and you've noticed from my first book to my third book, is to be less of thematic and more of the story. So the story carries you forward, not the themes. That's what I try to do in my stories.
No, your story is unputdownable. Let me put you. I think I've never had to. I've always read you in one sitting. You know, I've sort of
and then that's another thing also, is that I try to go simple as opposed to being complex. So my writing will have the plot will be something you'll follow from start to finish, and the language is also, I try to also make the language as simple as possible, because I think you can communicate effectively.
Yes.
Without having to use a lot of grandiose words there.
And also, and I haven't read them, but you've also written some books for young adults.
Yes,
I think.
for young adults and also for children.
So,
Yeah.
so what is that a different style? Is that a different? What are you? How do you tackle that?
It's very different.
Yes.
Writing for children is much more difficult than
Yeah.
writing for adults. So you have to really think about the language, you have to really think about the characters, because you have to go down to the level of a child. So I've done a book for 5-year-olds, books for 8-year-olds, and you always find it's a different challenge. Yeah, you have to think about the word count. Yeah.
And so okay, so now you're here. You've got recognition. You won the award last year. I think you're one of the few contemporary writers who are writing about things that we're all experiencing in real life. What's the next step? What would you ideally like to be?
So my next step is thinking about how to go international, because while a couple of people know me in Africa, some of the markets, I would want to go international. One of my role models is Peter Kimani,
Yes.
whose book has hit the New York Times bestseller list.
Yes.
And that would be a very good way of now taking my writing international, because I find that's the next frontier for me. Yeah.
Who are your favorite writers? I mean, who has had the biggest effect on you?
Locally, it's Meja Mwangi. Meja
Yes.
Mwangi writes very, very well. In fact, a lot of my early writing could actually see this is somebody trying to be Meja Mwangi. Internationally, Sidney Sheldon.
Yes.
I'm trying to read a bit of Tom Clancy, because my next book is going to touch a bit about terrorism.
Yes.
So,
You always use the current.
Which is a big thing in Africa.
It is a huge thing, isn't it? And in what way are you going to touch on it?
I have a theory about false flag terrorism.
Yes.
And how governments use false flag terrorism to get their ideas or get their budgets approved, and that's what I want to explore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You do think some of the events we've seen in Africa have been false flag?
I think some of them are. You could argue, if you look at what was happening just before let's say a particular grenade explode or something like that, and you find out what's happening in the country. It serves as a very convenient distraction, and I think that's across Africa.
This is going to be a controversial book of yours.
I hope it is, because with controversy, people sit down and talk. And that's what I want to do. When I wrote Den of Iniquities, my idea was that when you see the news in the evening and you hear that 5 people have been killed, you're going to question it, because we don't question a lot of things. Yeah.
Do you think we question things as a society?
I don't think so. I don't think we would be where we are in a society if we questioned, effectively the things that are happening in the society. Yeah.
You don't think we're interrogating what's going on?
I think
it's like a theater.
If you look at Twitter, for instance, you'll see something has happened, and then somebody is just going to come up with a challenge. Like now, what's trending right now is the resurrection challenge.
Yes.
So this pastor resurrects somebody, and the whole. So we are not interrogating that particular incident, but we are each creating our own kind of distraction.
Yes.
Yeah. You'll find something has happened, and then we have all these challenges. So I think we are so quick to go for the next exciting thing, next trending thing. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And Kinyanjui, tell me something about how we're living in a very new media. You're talking about WhatsApp, you're talking about marketing, you're talking about Twitter. Are these tools that you think about, or you are just using them, or because it's very different to what it would have been for somebody like yourself 10, 15 years ago, if you imagine. Would you have reached all this market?
No, I would not, because 2 things are happening. One is that I'm able to get directly to my audience. People who can directly interact with me and tell me, this book, I hated it or I loved it.
Do you get that?
I get that a lot, yeah. So I get people who directly were going to be very honest with their feedback. The second thing is that I'm using the power of multiplication that we have in the social media.
Yeah.
So if you receive, like last week when you received the book and you tweeted that you have received this book, and immediately people are asking me, where can I get the book?
Yes, I saw that.
So with your 500,000 plus followers, and then they retweet and everything like that, so I'm getting more orders coming from social media, which is what we would not have had a few years ago. My first book took more than 10 years to get to the 10,000 copies mark. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. This one, Poets and Players should get there in about 2 months, if we go the way we are going right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're an accelerator.
I'm trying as much as possible to be that, because again, as writers, we also have to complement what our publishers are doing.
Yes.
Publishers are a bit late to the party. Most of them are right now signing up for social media.
Do they get it?
Not yet.
Yes.
Not where we want them to be. Because this is the time that you find that they are trying to come up with social media profiles, posting about whatever is happening, but I feel that we are not yet reached there where we want to follow a publisher because of 1 or 2. This is the way people follow you, because they know that you will talk about things like markets, what's happening in the international world, and just following you gives people that kind of information. You don't follow a publisher because the only thing you're going to see is that, we have this new book, new book. I would be happy to follow a publisher who is giving me tips on the new curriculum. Yeah, so that in between they can talk about their book, but they are talking about the new curriculum, because it's the biggest thing right now. We don't know about the new curriculum. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, why don't you read us a passage from your latest book?
Okay, sure.
That will give people a flavor of what we're talking about.
Okay, I'll read. I actually read from the first page, yeah, so that I don't give spoilers. Yeah. Smack! It catches me by surprise. 3 seconds to be exact. 1 second, I'm admiring the sleek, brilliant white Mercedes-Benz parked across the road. The next second, a shadow is crossing my path. The third second, I'm flying in the air. The jab has got me in the eye. I feel a spasm of pain shoot through my body as I fall. It's almost impossible to be hit in the eye. When you hear people talking about being hit in the eye, they're talking about the eye socket. Most people do not get hit in the eye. When something is about to hit your eye, your reflexes swing into action. You'll either shut your eye or duck such that the blow hits your socket. When you're hit in the eye, your hands do not reach out to break your fall. They reach for the eye in an effort to stop the pain, and you end up falling like a sack of charcoal. As I land in the mud-filled ditch behind me, I see what we grew up calling a siororing. There's no direct translation for Esiorori. It is just Esiorori. Many circles of different sizes and colors merging into each other. From the open eye, I can see the towering figure of the person who hit me. With a clean sweep, he sends everything in front of me scattering. There is rage in his eyes. So that's the way it starts.
That's why I called you Roy Lichtenstein. Pow! Because you smack people in the eye when they start reading your book.
Yeah. I like the fact that when I wrote this book, I was not inhibited. The publisher did not tell me, don't touch this, and I felt that I had the kind of liberty to do anything.
Yes.
In fact, at the end, I've actually said, who knows, maybe I could write a book about my adventures. Perhaps I'll get a publisher crazy enough to agree to publish it. I hear that it's difficult to get published. Oh, or I could just buy the publishing firm. Why not? Who needs an editor when you can just buy the publishing firm? So something like that, I just put it in there.
That's the banker in you see.
Yeah.
And this is Longhorn.
This is Oxford.
This is
I've
Oxford.
done most of my publishing with Longhorn.
Yes.
And some of it with Oxford as well.
Yeah.
So I have another release coming from Oxford.
Yes.
In the next 1 month. The other month I'm getting one from Queenex.
Oh, wow.
And the other month I'm getting my third novel from Longhorn. Actually, this is my fourth novel.
Yes.
So my third novel is still being worked on by Longhorn publishers.
Fantastic.
Because it takes a bit of time for the whole publishing process.
And let me ask you with one final question. The literary scene. We have these tremendous writers all over the continent, But are you immersed in the literary scene?
Yeah, a lot.
Would you say, and is it a thriving one? And how would you characterize it?
I think it's coming up real fast because now we have a lot of activities that bring people together. So we have things like the Story Moja Festival,
yes,
where writers come together. We have Kwani Lit Fest. We have events happening at the Goto Institute almost every week. We have Alliance Foncé, and we have a lot of book clubs that are meeting up. We have Textbook Center book club. So it's very vibrant right now. We have awards, and we have Kenyans winning awards. My friend McKenna Onjereka won the Ken Prize. So we have there's a lot of activity happening, which is good for us. And I think once we sort out distribution, because that's the biggest problem that we have, distribution, we will have gotten people to we will actually make money, a lot more money from
Are you selling on Kindle and things like that?
Not yet.
Yes.
Our e-versions are going to come later on in the year. Right now we are still on the print
so
version.
none of the books are...
Some of the books are.
Yes.
My first 2 novels are available on e-versions, not on Kindle yet, but they're available as e-versions on the eKitabu application. Yeah.
Kinyanjui, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you for having me.
No, and thank you for being so prompt and on time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we look forward to having your book.
I do, and you will.